Okay, so let's take a look at the shots. The first thing everybody keeps telling me, which I knew they would say from the video this morning, it's like, well, let's take a look. Two things actually. It's comparing the 85mm 1.8G Nikkor on the Nikon D810 versus the 110mm f2. Like, why didn't you use 110mm or 105mm on? Because this is the equivalent of an 85mm. Well, technically 86mm. So even though this is 110mm, we have a reverse crop factor. So this 110mm is basically an 85mm, 35mm equivalent. So that's point number one. Point number two is obviously you can snag a Nikon D810 and an 85mm 1.8G. At least I can. You do some hunting, you could do it too, for $8,000 less. So this is $8,000 more. So this is not a question of cost or value, which of course everything's a question of cost and value. People say, well, I can grab the Nikon D810, several lenses, and a lot of lighting equipment for far, 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 far less than just what this camera and lens costs. And that's a true statement, but this video is not about cost or value, even though basically 99% of my videos are about cost and value. It's about money being irrelevant, which it basically never is. However, you're doing this as a business, it's tax write-off anyway. What has the best output? And so what's the answer? Well, obviously this, beats the hell out of the Nikon D810 and the 85mm 1.8G. If you're considering cost and value, obviously the D810 and the 85mm 1.8G is far from a slouch. 36 megapixel camera. It's a great lens. Does have some issues. I mean, we're talking about 51 megapixels and a huge-ass sensor here. It's a medium-format camera, for Christ's sakes, right? Obviously requires less enlargement. You could crop the piss out of it and still have amazing detail retention. Let's actually start right here. There's a few different things. So, obviously, the 102mm f2 has better saturation, better bokeh, better micro contrast, better rendering. The two of these kind of need some white balance, but there's something I want to mention too. The 85mm 1.8G, since blue glass is not only a capacitor, everything is capacitance, resistance, permeability, and permittivity. So we have to talk about capacitance and resistance. The 85mm 1.8G does not render as good. It actually shows up more yellow. We can obviously white balance these out, but the 85mm 1.8G has too much blue absorption, as you can actually tell from these pictures, but I knew that before testing these anyway. The out-of-focus details on the hair, and I'll give you links. I also have links of all the untouched. I shot raw and fine. I'll put the links below for the untouched raw files, and also the links for the JPEG files. All these files right here below. Okay. Is that we have too much significant chromatic aberration on the Nikon D810 and the 85mm 1.8G. Well, the lens is rendering too much chromatic aberration. We have none. We have no specular high contrast chromatic aberration. I did a lot of test shots. Yeah, this is a mannequin head, This is a perfect test for mannequin head, though, too. So we do have too much bad rendering of out-of-focus hair on this, at least to my liking, and also chromatic aberration. Let's go on to the next image for comparison. Even though this is an f2 lens, like I said, it's technically an f1.58. You can say it's 1.6. It still renders much better bokeh than the 85mm one, but you can actually see the bokeh balls. This is taking the same distance, same position, the same shooting angle as both cameras, same. You can actually see that the bokeh balls are actually not only larger but fluffier and puffier on the 110 f2 than on the 85mm 1.8G, so it definitely renders nicer so far as a creamy, dreamy, it should, right? $8,000 more? Well, this is not about cost and value, once again. This is about ultimate image output. If you're doing this as a job, it's a tax write-off. I mean, people that actually complain about expensive stuff that are tools meant to be used to make money, not like toys. Toys have a cost. Okay? It's like, oh crap, I just spent a bunch of money on a toy. Or if you're a hobbyist photographer, it's like, well, yeah, it costs a lot of money. If you're buying this as a tool to make yourself money, then it's not a consideration. It's an incredibly inexpensive medium format camera. You compare it to other medium format stuff, which is old, obsolete, slow, crappy, and junky, and hideously overpriced. I mean, the GFX blows the hell out of the rest of them. Micro contrast obviously is much better. Now the exposure on these is the same. You can bitch and moan all you want, but you can actually see the out of focus hairs on the GFX. It has better dynamic range, obviously, so than D810 by about a stop and a half. A little bit more than that, stop 3/4 than the Nikon D810. You can actually say, well, the specular's over here. The highlights, the bokeh highlights are brighter. A bunch of shots, everything's the same. We have better dynamic range, better micro contrast. These are black and white conversions from the straight out of camera files. Like I said, I've got the RAWs untouched and the JPEGs untouched on both of these. Yeah, I know it's a mannequin head. You know, if Zach Arias can use a mannequin head, then I'm pretty sure I can get away with using it too. But we have bigger bokeh balls on this, better micro contrast, better saturation. Better straight out of camera coloring too. Like I said, you can actually see this is a true green as opposed to the 85mm 1.8G, which is way too yellow. Obviously, you can correct